Good morning, welcome to CATEX-TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. This is a live broadcast from Princeton, New Jersey. Today is Friday, December 17th, 2010. It's 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the U.S. It's 4:30 p.m. in London. In Mexico City, it's 10:30 a.m. If you need to reach us during the broadcast, you can phone in toll-free at 1-866-67-CATEX. Overseas, our AOL instant mail address is CATEX-TV. Just a programming note, there will be no broadcast on Christmas Eve, 1 week from today, nor will there be broadcasts the following week. We will not be broadcasting in the week between Christmas and New Year's. We'll put a notice to that effect up on our website, so you won't be surprised. Here's an interesting anniversary. In 1903, today, on this date, 107 years ago, in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, the brothers Orville and Wilbur Wright test flew for the first time their airplane. Flew about 210 feet. Isn't that something? We've come a long way in a very short time. Some economic news. The U.S. leading economic indicators jumped 1.1%. That's a little bit higher than what people expected. That's good news. Fitch Ratings has approved Lloyd's of London with their rating of A+. That's hardly a surprise, but that's obviously good news for Lloyd's. The stock market is actually down about 30 points, even with that economic news. We'll go to our main reinsurance and insurance news. Well, yesterday it was Partner, and today it's Aspen. Coming from Bermuda, Aspen has increased its pre-tax loss estimate from September's Christchurch, New Zealand earthquake to $53 million US. This is up from $20 million. It's net of reinstatement premiums. Apparently, the new figure equates to an after-tax loss of $47 million. The upward revision reflects new information, and it's mainly due to one large domestic New Zealand cedant, which comprises about 81% of Aspen's total loss estimate for the whole earthquake. Aspen's initial estimate of a $2.2 billion loss in New Zealand dollars for this cedant included some pretty conservative margins. The latest information from this client indicates a substantial increase with a wide range of possible outcomes. So now Aspen has upped this estimate for this one cedant to $3.5 billion New Zealand. The balance of Aspen's loss is $5 million New Zealand, and it comprises shares on programs for clients domiciled outside of New Zealand, which included New Zealand exposure. So this New Zealand quake is going to rattle around for a while. It may take a little bit of time. Aon Benfield says that the Chilean quake more than 9 months ago seems to be coming in at an ultimate net loss of about $8.5 billion. Initial estimates from catastrophe modeling firms and reinsurers of between $8 billion and $10 billion for Chile have held up well. And Aon Benfield is now saying that the $8.5 billion looks like it's going to be the ultimate industry net loss. Here's an interesting story from England. Insurance companies accounted for 2/3 of the corporation tax paid by UK financial services firms for 2010. This is according to a new report from the Corporation of London. The contribution marks a substantial percentage increase from 2007, when insurers made up about 20% of the financial service sector's corporate tax bill. However, the actual tax bill for insurers was down about 6.8% year on year. Financial services remains the largest contributor of corporate tax to the UK, outstripping even the oil and gas companies operating in the North Sea. Insurers collected about £647 million worth of insurance premium tax revenue for the government. This undoubtedly is going to reawaken the debate over domicile choices. A number of traditionally London-based insurance groups have taken the decision to move their place of incorporation outside of England in search of more benevolent tax jurisdictions. Before this year's Deepwater Horizon disaster in the Gulf of Mexico, a similar blowout involving another BP operation in the Caspian Sea in Azerbaijan took place in 2008 that BP tried to keep secret. Classified cables from the State Department, the U.S. State Department in Azerbaijan, this is presumably emanating from the WikiLeaks source, revealed that a British Petroleum well in the ACG field in Azerbaijan in the Caspian Sea suffered a gas leak that could have resulted in an explosion. The leaked cables indicate that the cause of the problem may have involved faulty cement work, something that BP officials initially attributed the Deepwater Horizon accident to. Although BP avoided a deadly explosion, the gas leak forced the company to shut down 2 fields, knocking back oil production by 500,000 barrels a day for months. BP operates the ACG field in partnership with Chevron, ExxonMobil, Hess, and SOCAR, Azerbaijan's state-owned oil company. Some of these partners indicated that British Petroleum withheld information from them about the gas leak, according to these leaked cables. Hannover Re is coming out with some disturbing comments. The world's 3rd biggest reinsurer said that reinsurance premiums may actually decline in 2011, as this year's claims weren't big enough to turn the market around. According to Jürgen Graber, a board member of the company who is in management, our expectation for reinsurance rates in the P&C reinsurance are that they're going to fall a bit in 2011. These have been confirmed so far in our renewal talks. We as a company are still on a technically adequate level, Graber said, that allows us to earn our costs of capital. Hannover Re last month raised its 2010 profit target to more than 700 million euros and aims to post net income of about 650 million euros next year. The biggest claim, of course, for the insurance industry this year is that Chilean quake with the $8 billion tag. Aon Benfield chimed in. They said at year-end 2010 reinsurer capital has grown to record high levels. Reinsurance supply will continue to outpace demand, putting further downward pressure on rates. Stock market, as I said, is now down 29 points. We'll go to a word from our sponsors and come back with the rest of the news. The largest collection of fresh water anywhere in the world is included in the 5 Great Lakes, located in the middle of the North American continent. As we've reported in the past, the 5 Great Lakes are in danger of being inundated with Asian carp, monstrous 50, 60-pound fish sometimes that are predators and feed on other fish and other plankton opportunities in the food chain. There's a $7 billion a year fishing industry in the Great Lakes, and yesterday U.S. government officials promised a stepped-up fight to keep the Asian carp out of the Great Lakes by better tracking their movements, blocking potential migration pathways, and killing any that manage to evade a network of new barriers. There's a picture of a warning of an electrified fence that runs underwater on a tributary leading into the Great Lakes. The government is going to spend $47 million next year refining the technologies that detect the presence of the Asian carp by identifying their DNA in water samples and developing a better means of trapping, netting, electrocuting, or starving carp already in the waterways that lead to the lakes. The Obama administration, quote, has taken an aggressive and unprecedented approach to protect our Great Lakes and the economies that depend on them from the threat of Asian carp. This is from the White House. Bighead and silver carp imported from Asia have moved up the Mississippi and Illinois rivers and infested Chicago area waterways that lead to Lake Michigan. Scientists say that the voracious carp, which feed on plankton that forms the base of the aquatic food chain, could crowd out competitors and damage the $7 billion Great Lakes fishing industry. The administration this year finished work on a third electronic fish barrier on the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal. It also erected fences to prevent the carp from reaching the canal through the nearby Des Plaines River and to close off a potential path to Lake Erie from the Wabash River near Fort Wayne, Indiana. Well, Visa and MasterCard may face permanent damage to the fastest growing part of their business after the Federal Reserve proposed rules that could cut debit card transaction fees by 90%. An analyst who reviews the market named Scott Valentin said it's negative all around. This significantly impacts the business model for the credit card networks. Visa and MasterCard, the world's biggest payment networks, plunged more than 10% in stock trading in New York yesterday after the Federal Reserve proposed capping so-called interchange fees at 12 cents each. Currently, the networks charge merchants an average of 1% of the purchase price, regardless of the cost, and pass that money along to card-issuing banks. The change, if it's approved by the Fed after this public comment period that starts next week, could wipe out most of an estimated $15 billion in annual revenues for American banks that issue Visa and MasterCard debit cards. These banks would include the Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and J.P. Morgan Chase. According to U.S. Senator Richard Durbin from Illinois, who's been pushing for these caps, these credit card giants and banks are imposing fees that are in no relation to the actual cost of processing, and the retailers and merchants have no way to bargain or even resist these increases. According to Senator Durbin, and this hasn't been verified by anybody, the actual physical cost of the electronic transaction to the bank and the credit card network is 12 cents. News from Asia. The Japanese cabinet has approved a new set of guidelines that will focus on the rise of China and not Russia as the country's main military threat in defining its security goals. The guidelines announced this morning calls for a stronger alliance with the United States and expanded security with regional partners, including South Korea and Australia. Within 22 minutes, China immediately slammed the guidelines as irresponsible and said, quote, China is a force for peace and development in Asia and threatens no one. To bolster its forces, Japan will acquire new submarines and fighter jets, upgrade its missile defense capabilities, and make its ground forces more mobile so they can quickly respond to emergencies in southwest Japan. The plan didn't specify the locations, but Japanese media have said that 100 Japanese Marines are going to be sent to Okinawa, where Japan currently has no troops, placing them on the island that is closer to China. 100 Japanese Marines. It's not exactly not a big group. In September, Japan released a Chinese fishing boat captain who had been detained for 2 weeks after his ship collided with 2 Japanese Coast Guard vessels. Amazing. Well, it's Friday, so we figured we'd give you some weird news. We'll start from Britain. Organ transplants are a big thing, and if you're on a list waiting for a heart or liver, lungs, I mean, you're waiting and your life depends upon it. Well, I don't know what many people think about the quality of the transplanted organ coming. But in Britain, the National Health Service, I guess acknowledging the effects of pollution and long-term smoking, have indicated that they do acknowledge a shortage of healthy lungs and other organs available for transplant. So it's going back to those people waiting on the waiting list for a transplant